This is a major headline, 1:10 in the morning here. John Fetterman, ABC News projecting, will win Pennsylvania. This is a switch. There's going to be a lot of talk about the 11th hour help that John Fetterman received from former President Obama, from President Biden, from Oprah Winfrey, who she introduced the country to Dr. Oz on the Oprah show for many years. In the 11th hour, she offered her endorsement not to Dr. Oz, but to John Fetterman. And also this whole debate about whether or not, when he got on that debate stage and showed, what it's like to recover from a stroke, whether that would hurt or help. And he argued until the very last day, including last night, making his campaign speeches, that he'd grown more empathetic. This allows me to understand people, families, and what they go through when they get knocked down.
David, it's not just a switch. It's the first switch of the night, and it makes a big, big difference in the battle for the Senate. As you can see, the Democrats now have a real path, and you can see lots of other things move in front of it. But look, that's the first time we've had a switch all night. Look, the other ones that we've projected, those are Republicans holding Republican seats. These are Democrats holding Democratic seats. Remember, the Democrats, all they had to do was hold serve tonight. They just had to hold the seats they already had. Now they're winning a seat that had been held by a Republican. Now they're in a commanding position with the other states on the map. If they're able to hold on in Arizona, that would put them at 49. And then they're just one little old seat away. It could come in Nevada, where we're starting to get some data, or it could come in Georgia, where there's at least a possibility of a runoff. But regardless, this is an enormous, enormous pickup for them, a big boost for Democrats. And as you mentioned, David, one of the few places that Joe Biden personally went, invested a lot of energy and a lot of attention in that state, going head-to-head with Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's going to, a lot of people are going to ask, people kept Joe Biden at bay, at arm's length, and this was a state in the end that John Fetterman said, come home to Pennsylvania, and Joe Biden stood there, the president said, I know Pennsylvania, John Fetterman is Pennsylvania. Let's find out what the exit poll said about John Fetterman. Lindsay, you've been diving into this, what voters in Pennsylvania said today, and wow, this is quite a headline again. ABC News now projecting John Fetterman. This is a switch. Major headline, a switch to the Democrats in the Senate for Pennsylvania.
Very significant. Okay, if we look at, again, Pennsylvania and Michigan, the only states that said abortion was #1 before inflation. Abortion was an issue that Dr. Oz was a little bit slippery on. He wouldn't really, he kind of dodged often, just as much as Governor Sununu did with you. He kind of played that dodge game as far as whether or not he would support Lindsey Graham's federal abortion ban. And Fetterman's health, in the end, not enough of an issue there. The question for Pennsylvania voters, is Fetterman in good enough health to represent the state by a slim margin? But he did make it to the 50% mark there. His medical doctor did release a note saying that he was fit to run as senator. And then with Oz's views, again, initially he was running really closely to Trump, really celebrating that endorsement that he got. At a certain point, then he really moved away and said, well, I don't really consider myself to be MAGA. I consider myself to be more of a moderate. But again, we saw earlier, and we don't have it pulled up right now to show you, but in the end, it seemed to matter to a lot of voters that they really didn't believe that Oz lived in Pennsylvania long enough. And I think that really played a big role here.
And you have to wonder if the Oz campaign is going to look back at the last 2 days and ask themselves, was it smart to have former President Trump right there in Pennsylvania? They did bring in Susan Collins the next day, a much more moderate Republican, but Donald Trump was there with Dr. Oz in the final argument when Dr. Oz was trying to tell voters, I'll be a moderate Republican. I want to get right to Eva Pilgrim. She's live in Pennsylvania. She knows Pennsylvania very well. Any reaction from the Fetterman campaign tonight?
Well, the Fetterman campaign is obviously in a very good mood. This crowd behind us had been cheering as they were getting the numbers coming in just a short time ago. I think we're going to see them cheering here again just now. Celebrating. This was not something that they were expecting to get a result on tonight. A lot of people were expecting that this was going to go on for several days. The state of Pennsylvania and local officials bracing people for the fact that this vote could take a while, and to have a result tonight is a big win for this campaign. You heard Lindsay talking about the fact that a lot of people didn't view Dr. Oz as a true Pennsylvanian. And when I was talking to people specifically in those suburbs around Philadelphia, you have to think about the families that live in those collar counties. They have lived there for generation after generation. Those are counties where kids go off to school and they come back to raise their families. family. Generation after generation, they are entrenched in those communities. And people repeatedly told me he was not a Pennsylvanian. That was something that came up repeatedly. The other big thing that came up with those suburban women, those moms, was the issue of abortion. Even if they weren't big fans of the policies that Fetterman supported, that issue of abortion was what swayed them to vote for him. And the other group that I heard that from as well were fathers, repeatedly telling me the same thing. They had children, they had daughters, they were concerned about that issue, David.
Well, that point is really landing, Eva. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.